Wow. How about this, boys? Hold your breath here on this one. The snap is down. The kick is up. The kick is on its way. The kick is...
The snapper, senior walk-on T.J. O'Leary. The holder, senior walk-on Jake Wesham. The kicker, sophomore walk-on Alex Henry.
These are guys that somebody's determined they're not quite big enough. They're not quite fast enough. You know, why would you have walk-ons?
The heart and soul of our team really came from the walk-on players.
They want this program to win. They want this program to succeed because it's in their blood.
How do you give those young men the opportunity, the exposure, the chance to live a dream?
And the kick is...
Wow, this place is on their feet. I haven't seen Memorial Stadium like this in quite some time, fellas. What a moment in school history.
Nebraska believes it should compete for a national championship in college football every year.
Come on, baby! #1!
But given the size of Nebraska's population and its geographic location, is that expectation realistic?
From across the nation and around the globe, the sports-minded and fun-seekers come to enjoy everything under the sun in the playground of the world.
When you ask a guy 17 years old to come 2,000 miles and you got Florida State within 20 miles, Florida State's going to win most of the time. And so we began to think about, well, what can we do?
Nebraska doesn't have the warm winters and sunny skies of schools like Florida, Miami, and Alabama. With only 1.8 million people, Nebraska doesn't have the large population base of a Pennsylvania's 12 million, Texas's 24 million, or California's 36 million. How can Nebraska hope to compete for national championships? Where can it find that extra edge to take it to the next level? Some feel the answer is as close as Nebraska's own backyard.
All right, they're into the modified spread. 3rd down 5. Has the one set back, Dan Cogan, number 46. He's to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 20, to the 10. He's all the way home.
Go Big Red!
Can you believe this? They got a sellout here for a spring game.
This game sold out 10 days in advance. I mean, that's amazing when you look at, we're talking about a 2-hour scrimmage. I mean, this is not a game. I mean, it's a scrimmage or a practice, and we're talking about over 80,000 people paying around $10, $15 a piece, and in some cases, buying scalp tickets for $100 a piece.
The next biggest crowd in the Big 12 is around 30. And then you dwindle on down to some people had about 2,500, 4,000 at their spring game. So for Nebraska to have over 80,000 puts it into perspective.
But at this spring scrimmage, there's another game being played on the sidelines that's more important than the game on the field.
If you can get a recruit to come and see that and go, my goodness, they've come out in masses for a scrimmage. What do they do on a game day?
Go Big Red! Go Big Red! Go Big Red!
More than 60 recruits are prowling the sidelines, but as many as 30 of these recruits won't receive scholarships. Instead, they'll be actively recruited by Nebraska to walk on and get a chance to fight for a place on the team. 2 high school seniors have agreed to walk on in the fall, Taylor Dixon and Jordan Makovicka.
A lot of anticipation. I mean, I've been ready for this for a long time. I mean, all the other football games, I haven't been a part of the team actually, and now I am. I mean, it's awesome.
Taylor Dixon is from Juanita, Nebraska. Population just over 700 people. The town's new website says that its citizens are, for the most part, hardworking and law-abiding. To walk on at Nebraska, Taylor Dixon turned down scholarships from Chadron State and Doane College. since the cost of attending the University of Nebraska averages around $15,000 a year. The financial sacrifice to walk on at Nebraska is significant. But Dixon's dream of being a Husker began early.
We always played football on the playgrounds and everything, and nobody wanted to be the Colorado Buffaloes or the Kansas Jayhawks. Everybody was the Huskers. I mean, it seems like every single birthday cake I ever had a Husker in on it.
Taylor Dixon has worked cattle since he could first ride a horse. He now has his own herd of 30 Black Angus. He grew up on a ranch where you often did a few hours of morning chores before going to school. And even if you had football or basketball practice after school, there were more chores waiting for you when you got home.
Your great-great-grandfather homesteaded. Your granddad went through tough times. Your dad knows what it's like to have the ups and downs. And son, you better do one thing in life. You better go work hard. I don't care what you do, where you go, what you do, but you better work hard. So they come in with that mentality. Like, I'm going to work hard no matter what goes on, what the setbacks are, because that's the way I was brought up.
Taylor Dixon has decided to share a dorm room with another walk-on, Jordan Makovicka. Jordan grew up on a farmstead near Ulysses, Nebraska. Population, 276. Jordan is the fourth Makovicka brother to walk on at Nebraska. His three older brothers, Jeff, Joel, and Justin, have created high expectations.
Quick count, and the trap play. Makovicka wide open inside the 5 and down to the 1-yard line.
What they did in the 90s and what Nebraska did in the 90s was pretty special. And now, especially looking back on it, you realize how special it was and how hard it was to, I mean, back then you just thought that's what we're Nebraska and that's what we do, but they had to work hard to get there.
But because of changes in coaching and administration, it seemed to Jordan Makovicka that many cherished Nebraska traditions, like the walk-on program, were being pushed aside. So Jordan was planning on attending Creighton University in Omaha, where he'd been recruited to play baseball. However, when Tom Osborne returned to Nebraska to become athletic director, Jordan began to have a change of heart.
Once Coach Osborne was back, the pieces started to fall into place, and then once Coach Pelini was hired, I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
You have to have kids that believe in the walk-on program, the opportunity they're going to have, and they have to be willing to turn down money to a lot of other places to come with the opportunity to live a dream and play here.
Walk-ons aren't the only people being welcomed back into the program. High school coaches, like Taylor Dixon's coach, are also beginning to feel reconnected.
One of the big differences was Coach Osborne cared about us Nebraska high school coaches, and he cared about Nebraska high school players. We are, a small part of the program because we have a chance to send kids to the University of Nebraska, and there's a lot of pride. But the bottom line is that these kids are getting a chance again to give it a try.
Gans back, looks downfield, throws downfield. Peterson makes a terrific catch. Knocked out of bounds at the Virginia.
Taylor Dixon and Jordan Makovicka are keeping a close eye on several players in the spring game. Players who have walked on and earned scholarships. There aren't many, because under the previous coach Bill Callahan, walk-ons were not actively recruited. But some, like senior receiver Todd Peterson, walked on and earned a scholarship his sophomore year.
I remember watching national championship games in '94 and '95, but I'd never played organized football of any sort at that age. Started out pretty slowly on the scout team, like most guys work hard, don't play that first year. And then, things progressed really quickly the year after that. We had some injuries at wide receiver position, and I actually got to play a little bit, and ended up my first 2 catches ever were for touchdowns as a walk-on freshman, and that was pretty amazing.
Unlike Todd Peterson, senior Matt O'Hanlon played for 3 years before he got his scholarship for his senior season.
For me, it started when I was a little kid, obviously, growing up watching, the 97 championship. I didn't get recruited too much in high school. I mean, they offered me to walk on, obviously, but, that's where it all started, and, I'm glad that I made a decision to come here. It's been a great experience.
On the spring game field, there are also many promising walk-on players who may never get a scholarship. One is sophomore Alex Henry. Like most place kickers, he won't be given a scholarship until he proves himself on the field. But during Callahan's tenure, he wasn't recruited by coaches.
I was going to go to Creighton and play soccer. A few grad assistants would talk to me, but that was about it. I was one of like 5 guys to come in with that class, so it wasn't a lot at that time.
With the return of Tom Osborne and the hiring of Coach Bo Pelini as head coach, the fans are beginning to sense the return of some of the best Nebraska traditions.
There's this dynamic in Nebraska where it's been so rugged for 4 years, and people desperately want their program back. Now there's a feel that Nebraska's gone back to the Nebraska way, as it were, and they want to almost will this thing back to where it was.
Think about the 41 Rose Bowl team. They didn't have scholarships. At that time, you didn't have athletic scholarships. They all worked. The walk-on concept has its roots in something that's totally unrelated to walk-ons. There was that attitude that was represented by that 41 Rose Bowl team, that not only was Nebraska an important thing, because all these guys were Nebraska guys representing Nebraska out there in that game. They worked, they had jobs. I mean, that's the way the game was until probably the early 50s, I think, when Nebraska started giving scholarships based on how much money you had available.
Most colleges didn't begin to give scholarships until well after World War II. By the mid-1950s, at the schools that could afford it, many players were on athletic scholarship. By the early 1960s, the NCAA allowed teams to offer 45 scholarships each year. Teams could have as many as 180 football players on athletic scholarships. There was no need for a walk-on program. But there were still a few players who were not offered scholarships who wanted to try to earn a place on the team. One was a young man from Washington, D.C., who hitchhiked to Nebraska in the fall of 1963.
The barefoot kid in the alley. It was known as Phillips Court and or Phillips Alley. And it was a tough place to grow up. I guess I was recognized as being a pretty tough kid, you might say. They actually referred to us as alley rats. And that was very hurtful. And they would call us alley rats and run, because they knew if we got our hands on them, they were in for a beating.
You know, he had a rather unusual and difficult childhood and growing up, and he learned how to survive in a very tough neighborhood in Washington, D.C. And as a result of that, you know, when you have to survive and use your instincts, you become very good at what you need to get good at to stay alive. You could see there were times where on his body, there were scars and places where he had been cut and injured and that kind of thing.
Langston's mother worked for Ted Sorensen in Washington, D.C. Ted was a speechwriter for the president, President Kennedy, I believe, at that time.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I was in the White House with President Kennedy. I had heard from Langston that he wanted to go to Nebraska and play football.
Ted Sorensen went to Lincoln High School in Nebraska and earned his law degree from the University of Nebraska, finishing first in his class.
I would go out to the Sorensen's home and mow their lawn. And in the household, I would see memorabilia about the state of Nebraska and the University of Nebraska, and so that raised my curiosity.
He was determined to get to Nebraska, and he was going to hitchhike. For a big, tough-looking African-American to hitchhike from Washington, which itself is southern, to Lincoln, Nebraska, was a formidable undertaking.
As the legend goes, when Coach Bob Devaney met Coleman, he said to the other coaches, "Hell, if he hitchhiked all the way from Washington, we better find something for him to do." Langston's freshman coach remembers working with him.
Langston wasn't a very big guy, but he was a very tough guy, and I remember coaching him on the freshman team, and he later became a very good defensive end for us.
Is jolted loose from the ball by Coleman. He's thrown into the end zone for a safety by sophomore end Langston Coleman. Great defensive play by Washington, D.C. sophomore Langston Coleman.
Adrian told me that Langston might have been the only football player he was ever afraid of.
He basically cleaned my sophomore clock. It's dummy drill, okay? No tackling, no anything. I get ready just to kind of make my move where I want to be, and all of a sudden, the lights go out. And I'm going, I'm laying on the ground kind of woozy, and I finally come to, and I look up, and there's Trey Langston standing over me, looking down at me, smiling. And I said, Trey, what the heck are you doing, man? This is dummy drill. And he goes, I just want to make sure you knew I was around.
In 1965, the Cornhuskers played Bear Bryant's Alabama in the Orange Bowl. At the time, Alabama didn't allow African Americans on the team. When the Nebraska team got off the bus in Miami, they expected controversy.
Rick Coleman and I were coming off the bus together, and the reporter asked us who were we. They wanted to put names down, right? And Rick said to him, he said, "We're the Coleman brothers."
But the mood wasn't so lighthearted when play began. Coleman began to take a beating physically and psychologically.
An Alabama player called me the N-word. Rick Coleman and Walt Barnes, they really calmed me down, and they had these words, they said, "That's all, we'll get them, Trey. We don't want you to get thrown out of the game. Take it easy, take it easy. We'll get them." They cared about me as a teammate and brother.
Smothered by a great defensive play by Washington, D.C. sophomore Langston Coleman.
Despite the success of players like Langston Coleman, throughout the 1960s and into the early 70s, walk-ons were not really vital to the Nebraska team. But in 1973, the NCAA, seeking to establish better parity for smaller colleges with smaller budgets, began reducing athletic scholarships.
I think in 1973, when I started as head coach, was the last year that I remember that we had 45 initial scholarships we could give. Next year, it was reduced, I think, to 35, and then it went to 30, and then 25. And of course, as that went on, then the walk-ons became more and more important to us each successive year.
In 1982, Osborne hired a young man from North Platte, Nebraska, named Steve Peterson as recruiting coordinator.
The walk-ons have been a real blessing for us. Plus, no matter how detailed our evaluations are, no matter how hard we work and watch film, we're not going to be right all the time. We're always going to miss players. At least here, we give them a great opportunity to come in and prove that we're wrong. I always laugh about it because I think probably half the walk-ons that come here probably think I'm a jerk, and they're just going to show me that they could play at Nebraska whether I think they can or not. And that's probably a healthy situation to have them coming in here, and they're going to show you, and they're going to give it a great effort and feel good about it.
I kind of did have a chip on my shoulder, wanting to earn a scholarship. That was first and foremost, that I wanted to prove that I was good enough to play here.
Steve Peterson recruited a walk-on named Jeff Jamrog from the small, all-boys Catholic school of Mount Michael outside of Omaha.
I went to an all-boys boarding school. You went out there Sunday night, came home Friday night. It was about 20 minutes from Omaha, Nebraska, run by the Benedictine priests. Coach Kane was a tremendous coach.
Killer Kane, Jim Kane. And Jim was a pretty tough guy, and he coached everything. He thought Jeff was a really good player, and he was kind of unhappy that we weren't offering him a scholarship. But Jeff really wanted to play here, and he was like so many players. He turned down some scholarships, Division II schools, to come here.
I was very grateful for my grandpa. He helped me have a lawn service in high school, and then even when I started playing in Nebraska and we reported at camp, my grandpa was helping me, was cutting those yards to make ends meet. And I respect my dad that told me, he said, if you turn down a scholarship, it's on you.
We have a rule that if a guy becomes a first team player or a second team player that contributes a lot, then we give him a scholarship. And Coach Osborne saves 4, 5, 6 scholarships a year for guys who initially walked on and now have become scholarship players and compete on the team.
Jeff Jamrog was able to earn a scholarship after 2 years, but those first 2 years were not easy.
I had to find a way to make it work, to pay my way at University of Nebraska, and you find a way to make it happen. But I'll tell you what, it sure makes you grateful the first time you get your scholarship check. That helped pay for your rent and your meals.
Many walk-ons never get scholarships. Some transfer to other schools. But for some walk-ons, it's not about getting a scholarship. Some play for 5 years for other reasons.
Names of towns I immediately associate with guys. And Brian Harkleroad is one of those guys that, I don't think Brian Harkleroad played very much. But that's one of the things that appeals to me about following this program for 30 years are the people. And the people that often impress me the most are these guys who make this commitment. They walk on. It's anonymous. It's an anonymous 5 years for these guys in most cases.
I ended up making the top 60. Played on special teams mainly. Was a second string fullback. That was great. Got to travel with the team. You made a lot of friends, a lot of camaraderie. The things that you take away from is life. I mean, a lot of times in life, things are not going to be, you're not going to be the top dog all the time, and I think it just helps prepare you for the way things really are going to be in life.
A lot of kids want to try it, and then they get here and they realize they just can't compete at that level. They're not quick enough, they're not fast enough, they're not big, whatever it may be. It's tough to tell yourself that you're not going to achieve that high level of playing for the Cornhuskers, and that's hard. That's crushing somebody's dream.
A lot of them would quit if they would have stuck it out, and they would have probably had some chances in the later years. I set about to achieve some things, as much for my own personal self as anything. If you were able to finish through with that program, it really developed not just a football player, but character.
Brian Harkleroad finally lettered in his last year at Nebraska and played in the 1989 Orange Bowl. While players like Harkleroad and Jamrog were building character and learning lifelong skills, the Cornhuskers were losing bowl games. Between 1987 and 1993, Nebraska lost 7 straight. Fans were beginning to believe that Tom Osborne couldn't win the big games. They suspected that the walk-on program would never be able to contribute enough to allow Nebraska to compete against teams winning the 5-star recruiting battles. fans wondered if Nebraska would ever again compete for national championships.
I still picture it in my mind, Grandpa before he died and Dad on Saturday up early out in the pasture making fence. And the truck door would be wide open and you'd have that AM radio blaring and Lyle Bremser would be calling the game. Jacobson hit the passer. And you'd be sitting there working but listening to Nebraska football. And you just have these pictures in your mind of what it would be like and how neat it would be to be able to participate in that.
10 seconds left on the clock, and I am going out of my gourd.
Dad asked Coach Osborne whether he'd take a look at my tape and see what he thought, and Coach did. Coach called Dad and said, you know, I looked at your tape, we'll have a walk-on opportunity for your son. And at that time, everything else was off the table. You know, I'm gonna get a shot at Nebraska, and that's all I wanted is a shot.
Well, of course, the first Makovicka that I remember was Jeff. Jeff was not a real big guy when he came here, maybe 185 pounds. And but he lifted hard, and he got bigger, and he had great balance and great leg strength.
You know, to give a guy like me a chance was an unbelievable risk on their part because, you know, I was from a small school playing 8-man football, and they saw something that they wanted to take a chance on it, so I was very grateful for that.
When you hit Jeff, it was like a brick wall would hit you, where your head just kind of is ringing, and things just aren't clear up there. Some of the runs that best exemplify Nebraska football are some of those runs that the fullbacks have. When you see them just grinding away and carrying 2 and 3 and 4 guys with them to the end zone. That was Nebraska football. That was, man, we are going to smack you in the mouth. You better bring your buddies too, because just you're not going to be able to take me down. Just you is not going to be enough. You just knew that you were going to get exactly the same thing anytime you walked down the field. And that was everything. He was going to give everything.
One of the biggest days in my Husker football career was the day Coach Osborne walked into the lunchroom. He stopped me and he's like, Jeff, go eat lunch and then I need to see you. And I was like going through my mind, did I do anything? It's like I went to class. So I eat and I go up to his office and he said, you know, Jeff, that we have a senior that's on scholarship that's going to be graduating at semester and we think we'll have a scholarship for you. That's a big day in a walk-on's career is when you get that commitment from the team. You know you're finally wanted. My younger brother, Joel, was a walk-on. When he was a freshman, the first kickoff that Florida received in the national championship game my senior year, Joel was on the starting kickoff coverage team, and he flew down the field, and they had a receiver receiving it. He hit him so hard and rolled up on him, he dislocated his hip, put him out of the game, so I always kid Joel. I was like, you know, you helped us a lot in that game by taking out their best receivers. So, you know, things like that, those kids on special teams, they help out immensely.
Go ahead, crack a smile. You have won a second straight national championship. 25 straight wins.
2 in a row, baby. We'll get him again next year.
I was never one of those guys that said, you know what, I'm just coming here to sit on the bench. I'm just coming here to play scout team. I knew coming in that I'm as good as everybody else. It didn't matter if I was getting a scholarship or not. If I outperformed somebody, I was getting on the field.
Joel was a little bit more of a free spirit than Jeff, but he had a lot of talent. Some of those runs that those guys made maybe were only 10 yards, but they maybe broke, 7 or 8 tackles, and they showed great determination. They were also very good blockers, and they were tough guys.
You have to be tough a little bit to endure the winters, and you have to be tough to endure the summers. That toughness manifested itself on the field. You still see the highlight films of Joel dragging a guy into the end zone. Joel was a just do what he had to do guy. He would, if it meant blocking 20 straight plays, he'd do that. And then lo and behold, he'd get a chance to carry the ball, and you'd see the big fullback running down the field. And, and there's a walk-on. There's a kid who's become a household name to achieve that dream that all these Nebraska kids have, and yet was very humble about it.
I think probably one of my favorite touchdown runs is Joel early in the 97 season. He was carrying the ball, and it was just one of those runs where he should have went down 3 tackles ago. 5, 6 guys had the opportunity to tackle him, and whether it was him with the hand down on the ground or him just keeping his balance and holding on to that ball and eventually carrying 3 or 4 guys with him into the end zone. It was just, that's what you need. He was a motivator, I think, especially on that offensive side of the ball. He was kind of the guy that represented the Nebraska offense maybe better than anybody.
I think it's important in this business to walk away while you can still walk and while you can still function and perform. And I feel that I can at this point. The thing that I've enjoyed about coaching is the players and the coaches. And I will miss that very much. Those are the people that I care a great deal about.
And sitting back there when Coach Osborne was saying that he really didn't get a chance to see his kids grow up that much, I just wanted to say that he's had a chance to watch 150 guys on this team grow up, and the thousands that came before us that he's coached grow up, and he's been like a father figure to all of us.
As the team prepared for the 1998 Orange Bowl, the players knew they had a chance to do something for their retiring coach Tom Osborne that had never been done in modern college history. A chance to win 3 national championships in 4 years.
Did you take note of anything like this is the last bus ride, this is the last time to walk with the players?
I didn't think about that, but now that you mention it, I guess it was.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay.
Let's take these next 3 hours and let's dedicate it to one of the greatest football coaches, if not the greatest coach there ever was. Okay? Let's do that.
We always played with that kind of mindset. You play for the people that you love. You play for the guy who lines up next to you. You play for the fans.
I think that was great what Coach did. He made that paramount, loving one another on the team, because he knew that when things got tough in a close game, that's what gets you the wins.
Thanks all for all you've done for me and the university, and for you guys coming back next year. Keep it going. That's the only thing I want to see is keep it going and maintain this tradition.
When I look back on the success that Nebraska had during those 90 years, I think the number one reason is because of the walk-on program.
For the Nebraska touchdown.
On 4th down, Solich weaves through the middle for a first down on the Arkansas 15.
When Osborne stepped down, he made sure his longtime assistant coach, Frank Solich, would be hired as the next head coach. During the next 5 years under Solich, the walk-on program continued to be an integral part of the Nebraska system. But by 2002, Solich's record slipped to 7-7. He needed help. In 2003, he brought in a new coach to shore up Nebraska's defense.
Bo Pelini comes from the Green Bay Packers. When he walked out to his first practices in the spring of '03, he didn't know what to think. He was freaked out by it.
In the NFL, you have 55 guys at practice, you know, I mean, at the most. So to go from 55 to 160 or whatever it was that first day I walked out there to watch them practice, it looked like organized chaos.
Now, he didn't get it. It took him a while. He had to talk to Barney Cotton, Marvin Sanders, Ron Brown, the guys that were on the staff. And slowly, he gained an appreciation for it.
At almost the same time Pelini was hired, Steve Peterson was hired as Nebraska's new athletic director. The selection of the North Platte native was universally hailed in the media and blessed by Tom Osborne. But Peterson was a man who would bring change.
I refuse to let this program gravitate to mediocrity. We will not surrender the Big 12 Conference to Oklahoma and Texas.
At the end of the 2003 season, Steve Peterson stunned the team and most fans when he fired Frank Solich. In early January 2004, after a prolonged search, Steve Peterson finally hired a former coach from the NFL's Oakland Raiders.
Please join me in welcoming the new head football coach at the University of Nebraska, Coach Bill Callahan.
I think Steve felt like college football was going a different direction, and he wanted to be the leading part of that direction. And he felt like once he decided that Bill Callahan was his guy, that the NFL style was going to be more prevalent in college football.
You're going to get some great athletes if you're doing it that way. You have this NFL coach, and you can tell the kids, look, I know what it takes to get to the NFL because I was in the NFL, and I coached a Super Bowl, and I understand what it takes to develop an athlete to that level.
In 2004, Nebraska suffered its first losing season since 1962. But as 2005 began, Callahan and Peterson could begin in earnest recruiting players that could fulfill their new NFL-style vision, a vision that did not emphasize walk-ons.
Bill was going to reduce the walk-on program. They were a burden. There were too many guys out there at practice. You couldn't coordinate all these guys. We didn't need them.
I think they wanted it down to some manageable number of players because of his experience in the NFL, which there's 60 guys on the roster, and that's what they wanted here. And so they had to pare down the roster. And to do that, a lot of the walk-ons, got cut.
By 2007, Peterson and Callahan now had many of their recruited 4- and 5-star athletes in place. Fans felt the team was ready again to compete for national championships.
You know, this was year 4, and now we've got it going. And look what we got now, this 6'4", 220-pound quarterback. And we have a 5-star running back, and we have a big offensive line. And now this is going to happen. We're going to take the nation not by storm, but maybe by surprise. We got USC coming in here, which is, the program of the decade, and we're gonna get them.
Everybody's thinking we're gonna upset these guys. Not only did we not upset them, we got embarrassed on national TV. That's when it fell apart. That's when everybody knew, you know what? This is not working. This is a model. It's a model that won't work.
They weren't getting out into the Nebraska schools and meeting the coaches and the people around the state because most of the walk-ons come from the state. And so that's kind of where the disconnect came. I don't know if they came into it saying, well, we got to get rid of the walk-on program. I don't think they thought that way.
I believe Steve thought, I'm going to be on the leading edge of this new wave, and Bill's going to be able to lead us down that path. Didn't work. I think both gentlemen tried hard. Just didn't work. Wasn't the right formula. Wasn't the right fit.
I think it's because Steve wanted to do it his own way and form his own legacy. It becomes more about the person than the program, more about the person than what's good for the state. When it becomes more about you than the greater good, then I think there's naturally going to be problems.
As Osborne's quest began, he made it clear that whoever the next coach would be, Nebraska would revitalize the walk-on program. With little more than a one-week search, Tom Osborne hired Bo Pelini as Nebraska's next head coach.
I look forward to the opportunity to work with the young men that are here and go out and recruit the best out there in the state of Nebraska to try and get this program back on track.
Tom Osborne chose Bo Pelini as Nebraska's new head coach for several reasons. But there was one quality that was essential.
Tom realized two things. I need to have somebody who thinks and acts like a Nebraskan. Bo's from Youngstown, Ohio. How would you describe that? It's blue collar. It's hard work. This is a culture of guys who understand what it's like to play hard and never give up, to be relentless.
That was such a weak run. This is full speed. Full speed.
And the first thing that strikes you is practice. Practice is totally different.
And I think that's what he brings to practice every day. He's always serious during practice and always focused about, what we have to get done in practice. And, if someone screws up, he's going to let them know about it.
The path to success isn't fun. There's a lot of hard work involved. There's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot that has to be done. The end result's fun. In between, that means a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice involved. But if you're just out to enjoy your college life, this isn't the right program. You're not in the right sport.
I don't think very many people understand the Nebraska culture. We have a mentality in the state of an agricultural, hardworking, blue-collar kind of state. And all we ask of our athletes is that you represent us by working hard.
66, get up. Go, stand up. Hey, stop bending over. Who is that?
Stand up.
We do not bend over at this school.
One thing that I am so passionate about is the recruiting of the walk-ons, and Coach Pelini put me in charge of that, and we're so excited that we have 30 outstanding walk-ons coming on this fall to our program, joining our scholarship athletes.
Practicing with the freshmen are Taylor Dixon and Jordan Makovicka. Like most freshmen, they won't play in a game their first year. But if they work hard, they might earn the privilege of playing on the scout team and get the chance to practice against the first-team offense and defense.
Make a move. Make a move. Good hit. Good contact.
As a senior who was in that position, it's kind of a 180 to see the guy come at me as hard as he can, and I'm steamed up. I'm going back to the huddle. What's this kid trying to do? He's trying to show me. I have to take a second and calm down and realize, that was me 4 years ago.
You bring kids who have a sense of the program, sense of the tradition, and what it means to play for University of Nebraska, and you surround kids that may be coming from different parts of the country. It helps you shape that culture.
After a losing season, you wouldn't expect the first game of the next season to seem like a celebration. But Nebraskans turned out to tailgate in nearly record numbers.
And as kids, we were like, that's Coach DeBan, and he's at the top of your program, so it was someone to look to, and now these kids have Coach Osborne, and I think it's neat. I think it's great for these kids.
A lot of those kids, that's their dream of playing, and maybe they start 1 year. I only started 1 year, but it was the best year, of my life.
When you have small-town Nebraska kids coming, and even if, they're not playing, you'll have towns that follow them here just to watch them warm up.
Right here, first game.
The word resolve. I thought that was very symbolic of the season. This team always kept coming. They lose on their home field to Missouri, and you wonder about the season unraveling. And instead, they come back against Texas Tech, a loss that they actually derived a lot of confidence from. Then again, it happens again when they lose to Oklahoma. They get demolished in Oklahoma. And then coming back the very next week against Kansas.
With 5 wins and 4 losses, this game could decide if Nebraska goes to a bowl game.
We want them to get it on today and just crush Kansas. Just crush them. Just crush them.
On the sidelines is the legendary first walk-on, Langston Coleman.
You got this shot with this great man here. This is Joel Makovicka, man.
This is the man, Langston Coleman.
It's my honor to be talking to this hard-hitting guy here.
He allowed me to do what I could do because he was the very first. So, I mean, he paved the way is what's in it.
And he takes a snap, and then jump pass over the top to McNeil, touchdown.
By the Colorado game, Nebraska had 7 wins and 4 losses and was bowl eligible. But if they could beat the Colorado Buffaloes, they could play in one of the prized bowl games on January 1st. As the game begins, the quality of Nebraska's play varies wildly.
Nebraska digs a hole, has to kind of dig their way out of it. 14-0 start. Colorado gets the lead. Huskers fight back. You're kind of waiting for Nebraska to deliver a knockout blow to a team that they're better than. They're better than Colorado. But to the Buffaloes' credit, they kept fighting, and they put themselves in a position to win the game. It comes down inside the last 2 minutes of the game. Nebraska needs points to take the lead. 4th down, 4th and 25, Nebraska's faced with.
Timeout.
Nebraska calls their second timeout. Options being go for it on 4th and 25, punt, try to pin Colorado deep, get the ball back and make another run at it, or try a 57-yard field goal.
Bo Pelini walks over and asks walk-on kicker Alex Henry if he thinks he can make it.
I was a little iffy at the time and didn't know if I was confident in myself or not.
When I first asked him, he didn't give me quite the answer I wanted. You know, that he just kind of looked at me like I was nuts almost.
Pelini asks kickoff specialist Adi Kanalik if he can make the 57-yard kick.
Adi's just kind of the big hitter. I see Coach going to Alex, I see him kind of going to Adi, and I see him on the headset.
It was when I was talking to him that Alex came up and said, "Coach, I got it." I said, "Go do it." And at that point, I felt like he was going to make it.
Oh, and they're setting up for the field goal.
They got Alex Henry coming in.
Oh, my goodness.
Jake looked up to me and he said that I was going to be a hero. Like, he told me that. I was like, it made me kind of laugh a little bit.
Wow. How about this, boys? Amazing. Hold your breath here on this one. Senior T.J. O'Leary to snap it. Senior Jake West to put it down. Alex Henry to try to put the Huskers in front with 1:50 left in the game.
This is it. We're going to win right here on this kick, or we're going to walk off today with a loss to Colorado.
Ball right on the end. The snap is down. The kick is up. The kick is on its way, and the kick is good! It's in there! 57 yards out of school record to put the Huskers in front, 33-31.
The magic of the moment is that it was walk-ons involved in the key part of the play. You have a walk-on senior snapper in T.J. O'Leary, a walk-on senior holder in Jake Wesh, and then you have walk-on Alex Henry making maybe the biggest play of the season for Nebraska, a 57-yard field goal. I think it added to the magic of the moment.
Wow, this place is on their feet. I haven't seen Memorial Stadium like this in quite some time, fellas. What a moment in school history.
January 1 still has a magical feel about it for college football fans, programs, and I'm a big believer that bowl games, winning bowl games, is huge for a program to vault them into their off-season conditioning and really set the stage for the next fall.
Sit back and enjoy it. It's the Gator Bowl live from Jacksonville's Municipal Stadium.
On the sidelines are freshman walk-ons Jordan Makovicka and Taylor Dixon, who made the scout team for the Gator Bowl trip to Jacksonville, Florida.
Back to throw, gets hit and dropped at the 1-yard line. Hit by Ty Steinkuhler.
Nebraska's defense is winning the war in the trenches, but it's Nebraska's offense that gave Clemson the first score.
Pitches it back, the ball's deflected.
Oh, no.
It's loose. It's picked up by McDaniel. Dives. Touchdown, Clemson.
Nebraska walk-on Alex Henry answers Clemson's score with a long 48-yard field goal. Just when it looks like Nebraska will go into the locker room trailing 7-3, Nebraska's offense sets up another Clemson score.
You felt like, boy, Nebraska may even make a play here and have the lead. Instead, it's down 14-3 at the half. Can you recover from that? So at that point, there was some doubt. Could this team rally and get it going in the second half?
At that point, you think they're in deep trouble. But this team always kept coming, and that was refreshing to see after the seasons that we had seen previously, when Nebraska would go away.
Maybe last year we would have thought that, but you know, with this new coaching staff and the new things that they preach to us, like mental toughness and discipline, you know, it was never even in the back of our minds that we were going to lose.
No one knows the power of Nebraska's walk-on tradition better than Tom Osborne.
Walk-ons did more for us than just give us some more numbers and some good players. It really created a work ethic and a loyalty and a willingness to sacrifice that not very many teams had.
If you look at our walk-ons, they became the psychology of our team. How you practice, everything you do, you never, ever give up.
As Nebraska starts the second half, a pass from Joe Gans to Nate Swift puts Nebraska back in the game. But a few plays later, a Nebraska fumble sets up another Clemson score.
I think it was the very next play, Colin Harper, the Clemson quarterback, completed a 41-yard touchdown pass, and Nebraska's down 21-10. And at that point, I thought they had no momentum. I really believed at that point the game was over.
Nebraska is down 11 points and running out of time.
Rookie stepping up, still holding, throws over the middle. Peterson makes a catch, 5, Todd, touchdown.
But Nebraska comes back with a 19-yard strike from Joe Gans to a walk-on who earned his scholarship, Todd Peterson. Late in the third quarter, walk-on Alex Henry begins a string of 3 field goals that gives Nebraska the lead 26-21. Nebraska's last 16 points have all been scored by players who came as walk-ons. With a little more than a minute left in the game, Clemson passes deep into Nebraska territory. The game is now in the hands of Nebraska's defense.
See if the Huskers send heat. They don't. Harper's back, throws toward the middle.
So you had Tyler Wortman guarding Spiller. That's not good for Nebraska at that point. And, you know, I love Tyler Wortman, and he played a great game, but that's just a bad matchup. And I saw him break open, and I thought it was 6 points. Just as Spiller goes up and looks like he's going to make the game-winning touchdown catch, here comes O'Hanlon from behind him. O'Hanlon did a great job. He came from the backside, and he made the hit, and he swiped at the ball, and he knocked it away. And so you had 2 walk-ons from Nebraska guarding a guy that's going to play in the NFL someday.
And the Nebraska Cornhuskers are going to walk out of here as Gator Bowl champions.
So many of the young boys dream of playing for the Cornhuskers, whether it's from Alliance to Auburn or Oglala to Omaha. Through the walk-on program, it's that chance to live their dream.
It's that attitude that brings the state together. You have to have the entire state massed behind this program. You have to have that emotional energy. The walk-ons are the pieces that stick that thing together and hold it that way.
Ultimately, our number one job, in my opinion, is to prepare these kids for life after football. I think anybody who goes through it and does things the right way and puts their best effort is going to reap the benefits down the road. You're going to be hopefully a better father, be better in your profession you choose to be in because of the experiences you've had, the work ethic you developed, the discipline you live under, the structure, the lessons you learn along the way. That's the most important thing about playing football or any sport. It's not always about wins and losses. It's about the process. It's about the things you learn along the way.